Hi friends, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to our series of videos in 6 hours complete theory, driving theory for Belgium Made Simple. My name is Anjum and I'm the author of the book Driving Theory for Belgium Made Simple. In today's lesson, we will talk about waiting and parking, which is a lesson where there are a lot of things to remember. So people find this lesson very difficult because where to park, where to wait, what is the difference? I mean, can I really park my car there, etc., etc. So don't worry about that. We will try to make it very simple. I will try to explain you reasons on why you are allowed to wait at a place. First thing is we have to understand the difference between parking and waiting, which we will understand, and then we will put some rules, of some logic as to why waiting is allowed, why parking is prohibited, and so on. So by the end of the lesson you should be very confident about waiting and parking, and you should know exactly, you should be in a very comfortable and easy situation to answer any question related to waiting and parking. All right. So we will talk about the definition. The first is important to understand the definition. That's when, because waiting has different rules and parking has different rules. So it's very important that you know the difference. We will also look at what is waiting and parking, where waiting is allowed and parking is allowed, where it is prohibited, and where parking is prohibited but waiting is allowed, and how do you leave your car when you have parked your car. Okay, and then a very small overview of traffic signs, but then we will talk about the traffic signs in this lesson. We will kind of try to cover almost all, I would not say all the traffic signs, but most important traffic signs we will try to cover in this lesson, which we will be publishing also, which you can also access very soon through our website. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so first thing is to understand the definition. It's only when we understand the difference between waiting and parking will we be able to make a sound decision. We'll be able to say, okay, this is the correct answer. Here is where waiting and parking are prohibited and so on. Okay, so first is definition. Waiting. What is waiting? Waiting, you should remember this. This slide is very important, so pay attention. Waiting is allowing passengers to get in or out, or loading and unloading of goods without interruption. What does without interruption means? Without interruption means that it is not that you are loading and unloading goods at a place where waiting is allowed but parking is prohibited, and you just shut down the work, lock the car or lock your truck and just go for a lunch. No, then that becomes waiting. So there should not be interruption. You should be there, you should be present, you should be loading and unloading goods, or you should be allowing passengers to get in or out. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. Sometimes, loading and unloading is not something that you can do in 2 or 5 or 10 minutes, right? Sometimes it even takes hours, but that's okay. Where waiting is allowed, you are allowed to do that, load, unload goods. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. What matters is that you are either doing this or this, getting in or out of the car, letting passengers get in or out, or loading and unloading of goods. And that has to be without interruption. I hope the definition is clear. Let's now move to parking. Okay. Anything that lasts longer than waiting. So anything that takes more time than waiting is parking. It it doesn't matter even if it takes 5 minutes. If you have locked the car, you have gone away, then that is parking. Okay, even for 5 minutes, that becomes parking. Okay, so you have parking, and anything else other than waiting is parking. Now, other than waiting and parking, there's something also called as stopping or halting. This is, I would say, beyond your control. For example, in traffic, right? I have stopped the car in the traffic. You have stopped the car at the red traffic light, you know, whatever. You have stopped the car or to give priority to someone at a zebra crossing, so that's stopping and halting. So these three differences you should clearly know. So now there is a common question and you have to be clear using of the hazard indicators. So these are hazard indicators and this is the button for the hazard indicators. Like, these are four, two at the back and two in the front, hazard indicators blinking continuously. When are you allowed to use this? It's only permitted to warn of danger or accident or breakdown. Okay, so let's say you are driving on a highway or on a road, suddenly there is traffic building up and you suddenly see the traffic build up, then you can use the hazard indicators. Or if there is a situation, someone, you need to suddenly stop the car, you have an issue with the car, whatever, you can use the hazard indicators. It is only to indicate to the traffic behind you that there is a situation and you will not be able to continue driving at the normal speed. So the traffic behind you gets also adapted. Now you are only allowed to use this when there is a situation really, but not never to stop or park. Okay, never use this indicator. It's an offense actually when you have parked your car with these hazard indicators. All right, so let's get moving. Okay, so here's an example. So parking is permitted. Parking is permitted wherever you see this blue traffic sign. All right. Now this traffic sign can be followed, or on this traffic sign you can have different vehicles placed, which indicates parking will be reserved for those vehicles only. Okay. We will talk about these boards in our lesson 4, lesson 6, where we'll talk about traffic signs or traffic boards. But then here's just to give you an example. So for example, this is parking for cars. It's not only for cars, motorbikes, passenger cars, dual use cars, and minibuses. All right, and these are for motorcycles. And so basically dual use cars, you can use those cars to for passengers, as well as to transport goods. Okay, so those are dual use cars. And this is exclusively for light trucks, this is exclusively for motorcycles. These, like this in this case here, the parking is reserved exclusively for coaches. And in this case, the parking is reserved exclusively for campers. Okay, so on the parking sign itself, the placement of the vehicle indicates the kind of vehicle that are allowed to park. Now there are also these additional plates, okay, an arrow which can be pointing down, pointing up, or on both ways. So always remember, when it points down, this board applies till here. Okay, whatever the board is above this arrow, it applies till here, which means beyond this board does not apply. Okay, now in this case, when the arrow is pointing up, remember, you are going up means this board applies from here. Okay, it's from here until here. That's how you should remember that. There's another board with arrows on the both ends, but we will look at that later. All right, let's continue. Now, parking permitted, prohibited, parking permitted or prohibited or partially on the carriageway. So you will see these terms like carriageway, roadway, or road. These are the same terms. Okay, carriageway, roadway, road. But public road is different. Okay, I have explained that very clearly in my roads in the roads lesson, public roads lesson. So that's different. But carriageway, that this is carriageway. This is simple carriageway. Here is also carriageway from here to here. Okay. So these traffic signs, additional parking traffic signs. Now you don't have vehicle, but it is indicating how you are allowed to park. Okay. Now here, this is the road, and this is the elevated verge. Okay, this part is elevated verge. This indicates that a part of your car should be on the road and a part on the elevated verge. It's a must. Okay, it's obligatory that you must park your car like this. And here it says you must park your car on the road itself. You should never park on the verge. And here it says you must park your car fully on the verge. So these two examples are examples for the first one, where the car is parked partly on the road and partly on the verge. Again, the same thing. See, this type of this type of additional plate here, the white plate indicates that this board applies before this traffic sign and after this traffic sign on the entire stretch here. Okay. And this board applies on the side uh, where it is put. So for example, this board does not apply on this side. Okay, this board only applies on the side where it is put, and you have to park here partly on the road and partly on the verge. Now, parking and waiting is still prohibited. We are still looking at the prohibition sign. So on the side where the sign is placed, on both verge and carriageway until the next junction. Okay, so when you see this parking sign, okay, it indicates that the parking and waiting is prohibited. Now I want to tell you a trick here, or way to remember more than a trick. So if there is only one line, remember we have discussed very much about the traffic signs in the first lesson, I guess, or even in the fifth lesson we will talk about that the round boards are prohibition boards. Sorry, round boards with a red border are prohibition boards. Now this is a prohibition board, this is a prohibition board. Prohibition means you should not do something. Okay, in this case it's a prohibition board, which means you should not do something. What you should not do, you should not park there. Where? You should not park on the road, you should not park on the verge. That's it, very simple. Not on the road, not on the verge. Parking is prohibited. Now when you have two lines, just remember, one line is for parking, the other line is for waiting. Okay, it means parking and waiting is prohibited where? Both on the road and on the verge. Okay, so like in this case, it says from here parking and waiting is prohibited. But look, there is a car that is parked here, which is clearly an offense. Okay, now there could be prohibitions that apply on the entire zone. Again, we know that this is a zonal board. We have explained that in the lesson 5. The zonal board is usually a white board with black ink on that, which means that it applies on the entire zone. So it's not on the street. These boards are for the street, okay, and on the side where it is placed. But this is a zonal board. It applies on the entire zone. So this indicates that in the entire zone, you're not allowed to park. Okay, but where will you park then? You will park at the places where it is specifically mentioned that you can park your vehicle. Okay. All right.